It'll break my heart to bits if I have to leave. You know, my grandparents survived the Dust Bowl. That I could take way easier than I can take this human-caused disaster I'm in right now.
I just don't know if I can put it into words. Wilderness is a feeling. That feeling that every time you walk around a corner, it's something new. You don't see it from a mile away. And I like that.
I tend to find that mystical place in the Badlands, and it always finds me, even when I'm not looking for it.
Way back in the mid-90s, my annual Badlands report, Christmas report, I wrote, Western North Dakota and Eastern Montana are America's last best place. Because it was sweet, it was delightful, it was wide open, it was inhabited mostly by wildlife.
In 1970, 500,000 acres, or half of the Little Missouri's 1 million acres, would have qualified for wilderness designation. By the late 1970s, that number had been cut in half. Currently, the Forest Service is managing only 40,000 acres as suitable for wilderness.
People don't realize how big the Bakken is. It's the whole northwest third of the state, and it stretches into the Little Missouri National Grassland. I think people also don't know that 95% of our national grasslands, the land that we own, is open to oil development.
The Bakken itself had been passed by for 40 years here. It's just now we have the technology to recover that oil.
I've been through an oil boom before when I lived up in Sidney, Montana, and it takes away the wild real quick. And that's something we need to be aware of here. We need to save some of this for our children and their children. And
well, today we're helping to open up the Painted Canyon visitor area here. We're volunteering to clean it up and get it ready for the influx of tourists here. Use all your muscles, 2 hands. Attaboy. I think that's it. I think it's important that we all take a stake in preserving our natural heritage, and of course the Badlands is one of the greatest natural heritages and landscapes that we have here in North Dakota.
I just love the Badlands, and I feel we need to take care of it.
Good deal of the economic activity in North Dakota, particularly with respect to oil, is managed by the 3-member Industrial Commission, who had 2 purposes: to generate homegrown economic activity by the people of North Dakota, for the people of North Dakota, and to take back the state from out-of-state interests. That's its purpose.
We do have a policy in place that addresses issues that we need to be concerned about with mitigating risk, minimizing impacts, protecting the environment. That's what we're charged with on the Industrial Commission.
Government, to one extent or another, exists to prevent chaos, not encourage it.
It is, in my mind, appropriate that the public have an opportunity to comment on what is done with public lands.
I would say that the lobbyists for the North Dakota Petroleum Council have absolutely open access to our governor's office and our executive agencies, and they have a great deal of influence over public policy in North Dakota.
Well, the public needs to take responsibility for what they want their state to be. And if we don't do that,
then we're going to have to settle for what somebody else gives us. And that we may not like that.
They watered that policy down to the point that they might as well have just scrapped it. I mean, it really means nothing. It's there on the books. It says that there are some special places that they will take an extra interest in and maybe look at a little closer. But in practical impact, it has made zero difference to date, I would say.
And the bottom line is, in the policy that was passed, is the Oil and Gas Division director may or may not consider the comments received. So basically, the comments that are received from the public on public lands can be ignored, and largely have been.
Well, the public has a good sense, I think, of what works and what doesn't work on the land. And the more we bring the public into the discussion, the better the result's going to be on how this development goes forward in the future. And it will go forward. We're going to have oil and gas development. We need to have oil and gas development. But we need to do it in a responsible way that minimizes the harm to both the environment and to our social lives.
It really comes down to communication. It's about sharing information. It's about talking and creatively coming up with ways to mitigate those impacts. Very often, I will contact an oil company. I will call them up and say, do you know that you're staking a well pad within X number of feet or a couple of miles of the park? And so often, they have no idea.
This boom could have been tempered from day one by the state of North Dakota.
Booms are very trackable. All you have to do is Google it. Google oil price, and you'll see the boom times. I mean, it's not hard. When the price gets high, like any other industry, you're going to have more activity.
Lynn Helms from the Department of Mineral Resources claims that there's going to be a well on every section of land out there.
We are planning over the next 2 decades to drill and hydraulically fracture every square mile of that area.
I heard when we started this was going to last for 20 years. We used to laugh about that at the rig because no boom lasts for 20 years. Never has, never will.
And when we drill every square mile, it's not just the wells that are disrupting the landscape, it's all the industrial development that goes with that. It's all of the roads, it's all of the dust, it's all of the noise, and all of those things that are so disruptive to wildlife and to people who enjoy sharing that wildlife.
Well, when we look literally at a well or oil production on every square mile, roughly 1/3 of the state. That's a tremendous impact on wildlife as well as our people, our landowners, our town dwellers, our farmers and ranchers out there. I mean, that is a lot of heavy industry spread completely across the landscape.
Just the Bakken alone is an estimated 15,000 square miles with oil wells in every section or multiple wells in every 2 sections. It's no longer going to be a concern about access. It's going to be a concern about where can those critters go to find any kind of wildlife habitat.
But with the coming of this oil boom, all things have changed, and the wildlife that was such a part of the idea of North Dakota, that's all changing and changing dramatically because many of these species cannot stand the noise and the dust and the congestion and the traffic that comes with an oil boom.
Wildlife depend on habitat. Habitat is composed of 4 things: food, water, cover, and space. You start necking down any one of those. You remove their food, they don't survive. You remove their water, they don't survive. Crowd them into too little space, they spend all their time fighting, and they don't survive.
The North Dakota Game Fish Department has put together a report in 2011 that used over 200 citations on different studies on the impact of oil and gas on wildlife, and it's all, for the most part, bad. future for wildlife in the Badlands is pretty grim unless we take some action to change the way we're doing business.
One of the last times that we were out there, my son and I were sitting on the tailgate of our truck having lunch at lunchtime, eating our sandwiches, and down the road they were putting in a new well. And I know people have a hard time believing this, but literally there was a truck that went by every minute.
The premium hunting license in North Dakota is a mule deer license in the Badlands. Some hunters wait years, tens of years sometimes, to draw a license. That is going to be harder to do in the future because the development that's being proposed is going to take away a lot of that.
We had a favorite piece of land. We hunted on a section of land, a nice creek running through it, and lots of wildlife. And now there are 7 oil wells on it, and I don't think you'll find any wildlife hardly whatsoever.
It's just detracted from the peace, the solitude, the tranquility, the wilderness experience is I can best describe.
People enjoy our Badlands in western North Dakota for all kinds of reasons. There's hunters, there's bird watchers, there's photographers, there's campers, there's hikers, there's bikers, there's horseback riders, and the list goes on, and it's just endless. And they all go out for different reasons, but they all come back more humbled than they were before because the experience in the Badlands is pretty close to spiritual. There is something about the Badlands, and it's one of those things you can't put your finger on, but when you have experienced, you'll know you have experienced it. And it just makes you feel so good and inspired that you want to come back.
This is a long-term development for North Dakota. I mean, and Lynn Helms will talk about that. We're at least 5 generations out from rehabilitation and restoration. That's 100 years. That's longer than all of our lifetimes. So it's going to be up to your grandchildren or my grandchildren or great-grandchildren to start fixing this 100 years from now, if we can.
None of us minded moderation. There have been oil wells drilled here for the last 50 years, or whatever it is, 60 years. It was the extreme nature of this that has forced many people to become Bakken refugees and or many more of the rest of us who pretty much every day say, am I leaving today, next week, next month, when am I going to leave? I know millionaires out there who have specifically said, if we had any idea that this was going to turn out like it is, they said there is no way we would take one dime of that oil money.
The only way we are going to preserve this incredible landscape, the wildlife, the vegetation, the Little Missouri River, the only way we're going to take care of that place is if we collaborate with each other.
The threat is real, and it's up to us to act. Either we do this now or we lose it all.